Advances in science are helping us understand aging better than ever before, but the real challenge lies in translating that science into practical habits that can be incorporated into our daily lives. It is my privilege and honor to introduce our distinguished speaker for today's webinar, Dr. Naras Bhat, MD, FACP. Dr. Bhat is a practicing doctor in San Francisco Bay Area and professor of longevity medicine in the United States, and has devoted many years to understanding the science of healthy aging, preventive medicine, and lifestyle interventions that can improve both lifespan and health span. Today, we also have selected few panelists from different walks of life and also from different regions. I will quickly call out today So Murania.
Sairam.
He's from Malawi, Africa. He is the head of One World One Family Foundation of Malawi. Emmanuel from Nigeria.
Sairam and good evening from Nigeria.
He manages our hospital and school in Nigeria, the One World One Family Mission. Dr. Gautami Mohan.
Sairam. Thank you. Yeah.
She is the director of our Sai Sanjeevani Medical Center here in Clarksdale, Mississippi. She also runs after-school program there. Mi Kyung.
Sairam, hello from Germany.
Along with acupuncture and Ayurvedic medicine. She is currently in Germany. She also coordinates our One World Family Mission in South Korea. Shivaprasad Bhatt. He hails from Shivamogga in India. He heads our educational campus in Shivamogga, India. He will be Muni Wagan. She is also from Clarksdale with experience in youth mentoring and child advocacy. And Dr. Vivek Shanbag.
Namaste everyone.
Dean and Distinguished Professor of Ayurvedic Medicine in Arya University, San Francisco, USA. Dr. Joy Bhatt.
Hello everyone.
Doctor practicing in California, specialist in rehab medicine, weight loss and lifestyle medicine, trendsetter in longevity medicine. Thank you all the panelists. I would like to also highlight that this webinar is for education purposes only and it is not for intended as medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any health related decisions. Also, it is designed primarily for adults. Participants under 18 should attend with guidance of a parent or a guardian. The views expressed during this webinar are just opinions of the speaker and not necessarily represent the views of Education for All or its affiliates. With that, let us begin what promises to be an enlightening and inspiring session. Dr. Bhatt, thank you for being with us today. Let me begin with my first question. What is longevity and what is aging?
Well, welcome everybody. I'm very pleased to do this webinar. This is the first time I am teaching a lay audience worldwide on this topic of longevity medicine. As a professor, I've been teaching with the slides, but today Shivaram asked me to have a conversation style so that it is down to earth at a layman level, that everybody can take home some message that can start implementing today itself. So
Yes,
the first
that's right.
question is, what is longevity medicine? Longevity medicine is very simply put, is a new frontier of medicine that makes you not only live long, but that added longevity is with the full health, which is what is called the health span. And that one, the model that I used to teach is the binocular view. Imagine you are wearing a binocular, and on one eye, it is the geroscience. On the other eye, it is the longevity medicine. The geroscience is the foundational science, just like the physiology or biochemistry is the foundational science of modern medicine. The longevity medicine foundational science is called geroscience, which is basically the hallmarks of aging or the markers of aging, and that depicts the biology of aging, whereas the longevity medicine is the practice of that science with people using biomarkers. And the goal is to extend your lifespan and health span, and we call it as geroprotective lifestyle and therapy. So the key part again is that longevity or the process of your aging is modifiable. You can increase or decrease the speed of aging by doing deliberate, intentional interventions that we are going to discuss. In other words, aging, there are two choices you have: watch it happen or make it happen. So here we are going to teach you how to make your aging happen the way you want it. In other words, how to grow old or young as you age. So that, in a sense, is what is longevity science. By the way, we are navigating a very complex landscape here. So give you the complexity of the landscape. That is, there are leading scientists like David Sinclair, Rhonda Patrick, Peter Attia, Nir Barzilai, Walter Longo, Mark Huberman, and leading centers of longevity research: Buck Institute, Salk Institute in California, and then Albert Einstein Institute near New York, Stanford Center, and so forth. All of this knowledge we are going to simplify at a layman level with a simple roadmap, that is the complexity of scientists, top expensive clinics, longevity pills, so-called magic pills of longevity. All of that are going to be simplified into daily functions and daily habits of 4 key things: your sleep, how you move, how you eat, and how you connect. So that, in short, is what longevity medicine intro. So Shivram?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Naras. But I think you also in between you mentioned about geroscience or geroscience. Can you explain what exactly is that?
Okay, geroscience in fact, it is not geriatrics, it's geroscience. Geroscience has the 4 key concepts. The first fundamental principle, that aging itself is the root cause of disease, decline in function, and disability. So aging is the driver of these 3 Ds, that is the disability, disease, and decline in function. So at the upstream level, if you can intervene, modify the aging process, you are going to affect multi-morbidity. Simply means multiple diseases like a cancer, like heart disease, like neurodegenerative diseases. And all of this started in 2013, not too long ago, 13 years ago, only 13 years ago, by one fundamental thing called hallmarks of aging. Hallmarks of aging is like a clock. There are 12 different hallmarks of aging. I will just mention it. You don't need to know details. For example, inflammation and aging, dysbiosis, gut immune system modification. That's what we call gut biome. So all of these hallmarks of aging are the targets that you work on. Why? Because as you age, your resilience or ability to bounce back reduces. That manifests as frailty, disease, and then decline in function. So the second part of a core concept of geroscience is hallmarks. The third part of geroscience is biological versus chronological age. So let's elaborate on that. That's the biological and chronological age. So in Sanskrit, we call it as Kala Chakra, which is the clock ticking, and Jiva Chakra, that is the biology of your aging. So on the one hand, remember, even before the clock came to our life, people knew how to count their day and then how to live their life. Similarly, before the hallmarks of aging came to our life, we knew how to spot the process of aging, except now we are able to define it precisely with the help of biotechnology, physics, and AI, or artificial intelligence. Let me just clarify the two concepts of aging. Chronological aging is from the day you were born, how many days or years have passed. Whereas the biological aging is how soon you perish. I give the example of it is not what model of the car you're driving, but how much mileage you have in the car. Easier example will be the fruit vendor's logic. The fruit vendor goes to the tree and picks up the apple and puts them in the shelf to sell it. And the first fruit to perish is not the first fruit he picked. The first fruit to perish is based on the biological property of that particular fruit. So he tosses that fruit away. Similarly, your own biology, part by part, perishes by its own longevity, and that is the difference between biological age and chronological age. Okay, now the next one, what is the next question, Shivram?
Okay, actually, that was also my question. So, yeah, you already explained about the chronological age versus biological age. It's very interesting. So, you're saying that there is a biological age. You gave a good example of the fruit also. That is very good. But in terms of our body, if you have to connect, you also mentioned about gut. So, or whether all these are connected for a biological age, or what specifically when it comes to the human biological age, the factors involved.
I'm glad you brought up the gut. Gut biome or your gut is the command center of your body. And then we test it. We test it by simple stool examination. So the gut brain axis is there, gut muscle axis is there, gut heart axis is there. So we live in our body thinking I am living my body, but 90+% of your body is a biome, bacteria, virus, and other things. And they have their own metabolism inside your body. They are renting your body and creating your vitality. So biome analysis, gut biome analysis is one of the key factors in measuring your biological clock. Now let's discuss the biological clock. So what is a biological aging clock? Now, very simply put, our body is continuously sending signals as we are living our life. These signals can be picked up in your saliva, in your blood, and even from your heartbeat or the wearables. If you're wearing, an Apple Watch or a wristband, then you can pick up the signal. These signal input is analyzed within modern AI technology, and it gives you an output of your aging clock. And these aging clocks can be measured from your saliva, from your blood. I give you one example. The most popular, or not popular, the most talked about aging clock in America is called the True Diagnostic Biological Age Test. And it's expensive. It is $500 plus. It measures three parts of your aging. One, how old are you biologically? Two, is what is the speed of aging? Not the tick of the clock on the wall, the tick of the clock in your biology. And the third thing is called symphony age. How old is your brain, blood, lung, heart, liver, and all these? This is called symphony age. So we have today the technology to measure how each organ in your body is aging. But more importantly, what is the latest advancement is called IAge, not the I that your eye, but the letter IAge, which is the immune age. Dr. David Furman, remember that name, from Buck Institute in San Francisco area, he has studied at Stanford 1,000 people's immune system with millions of data using AI and come up with an age called IAge. And he has connected, believe it or not, with one drop of blood or one drop of your saliva. His test can tell how many push-ups you are able to do, your intrinsic capacity, what is called the vitality, cognition, locomotion, or your psychological well-being, or your hearing, your sense, what WHO calls as intrinsic capacity. All of that can be measured with one drop of your blood and then so forth. But today, we are in the wearing technology. That means we have the wearables. Wearables like you wear a watch, you wear a ring, you wear a wristband, or you wear a continuous glucose monitoring. This wearable technology picks up the signal from your body. There's a nerve in your body called vagus nerve, and then that connects your your gut and your brain, and it is picked up from your wristwatch or your ring, and that is analyzed as a wearable data in real time how the biological clock is clicking. So that's a long answer for your quick question.
Yeah, sure. That's a very good answer. Actually, there's one question from the audience, that is Dr. Hanumantaya, professor. He's asking what the role of food in aging. And combined with that, I have another question, that is, people talk about antioxidants and all, whether these are all anything linked with the longevity that you are talking about.
So the question was the role of food in aging, right?
That is one thing, and other also, the people talk about antioxidants and all this, right? So
Yes. And I will answer it because what we will do, we have a one session down the line. We at the later on in my talk where we will be addressing what to eat, when to eat, how to eat, and what pills work. At that time, I will elaborate that. Okay. So
sure.
let us postpone for a moment, but let's look at one concept called health span. You mentioned health span, right? And for now, to get our audience oriented to the real core of longevity medicine, let me clarify what is the health span. Okay? So, health span is now, first of all, let's imagine each one of us are hoping to live to be 100, to live to be 100-year-old. So if the last 10 years of your 100 years, that is age 90 to 100, if you are bedridden or if you are confined to chair, then that is called morbidity, and your health span is reduced by 10 years. So that is the concept of health span. But worldwide, what has been, they looked at 183 countries and found out the average lifespan is a 73-year-old and average health span is a 63-year-old. So there is approximately 10-year gap, and that 10-year gap is called health span gap. Longevity medicine primary goal is to reduce that gap. Okay, let me ask this question to all of you audience. Why do you want to know about the longevity medicine? Why do you want to know about the health span? So let me address that issue now itself. Let me ask you, all of you, is it true that you want to live long? Perhaps you want to live to be 100. Raise your hand, those of you who are in the camera. Is that true? Yes. We all want to live to be 100. Now, if I tell you the last 10 years of your life, you're going to be bedridden or you're going to be wheelchair bound, Do you want to live to be 100?
That is very scary.
Very scary. That is the reality of life. That is the reality of life because worldwide, the 10-year gap is known as the marginal decade. And during that marginal decade, what is it that you are able to do, what you want to do, and that is the key function, a key goal of longevity medicine. Okay?
Okay,
Next
so
question.
basically it is not necessarily the how long you live, but it is addressing how healthily you live, or how
Absolutely.
long, or reducing that the wheelchair age.
Yes. In
Okay.
other words, how you will live to be functional, the things that you want to do in the old age.
So that means even let's say someone lives for 70 years, but does not have that wheelchair age of health span, right? So is that considered to be successful life?
Yeah, here's how I answer it, okay? So what you're asking is, people people believe that the last 10 year means age 90 to 100, okay?
Sure.
But we see people, I already mentioned worldwide, the longevity is 73 and the disability is 63, age 63. But we see people at age 40, their last decade of life has started. They had a heart attack. They fell and had a hip fracture. Okay. They had an illness. So for each individual, the marginal decade is variable. So longevity medicine is not only for people who are older, it is also people who are younger, middle-aged, and so forth. So that is why, the deepest why of learning longevity medicine is a doable, modifiable, lifestyle change to make your aging, make it happen rather than watch it happen.
Right. My question is also when you talk about biological age, right, versus the chronological age. So if the person is healthy, means the person has longer biological age, or is that connected to the health, or is there something, some other factors involved?
Excellent question. And that will drive us. In other words, you go to gym, you're fit, and you think you're fit, and then does that mean you have a health span? Answer is definite no, because there are multi domains of your health, what we call a longevity dashboard. Shall we go into that?
Yeah. Before that, I have to clarify this question, or get an answer so that all the audience are tuned. So the question is mainly, let's say I go to a longevity doctor and get all the medicine and things. So am I focusing on increasing my biological age or the actual age, or is it I'm only focusing on, okay, my lifespan may not increase, but the health span may be better? Is that what is I'm focusing on?
Yeah, number one, okay. You don't go to a doctor called a longevity doctor because you go to your own doctor, and then
Sure.
later on I will guide you. I will guide you because you are responsible for your own longevity and health span. Okay, so the goal of longevity medicine, is you as the end user or the consumer, you measure your own different biomarkers of aging using the variables or using the blood test and other tests I'm going to guide you. And then you decide how can you modify it using as a moving target so that that longevity means longer living with health is modified in every organ starting from your cell and at the molecular level. That is the crux of the matter.
Okay. Like, for instance, why do I need a longevity medicine doctor or any my primary care physician? Let's say I'm in for my 40s.
Right. If you are in your 40s, and in fact, we will address it systematically later on, as a checklist, what to ask. And then that way, let's postpone that question to a little later time.
Sure.
Okay. And then, so let's get into what are the three key concepts of longevity medicines. And this is, let's get into that concept. That is, number one is tracking the biomarkers. Number two is the functional reserve dashboard. When you're driving your car, you have a dashboard. You have a speedometer, and you have a gauge that tells you how much fuel is there. And then you have the RPM monitor, and then perhaps GPS and so forth. So that is the dashboard. But in short, we look at it, we empower you by three powers: the willpower, the pill power, and the skill power. Very easy to remember. Okay? Let me address the willpower. It has been shown that, especially the insurance data in this country, that old people, age of 60, 70, and 80, many people have lost their drive or interest to live. They don't have what is called the will to live. Okay, you must have heard people saying, oh, my children are grown up. I have grandchildren. I have nothing else now to do. And, whenever he is ready, he can take me. And this is modifiable. Then research has shown when you give up with that sense, then your will to live, your mindset has changed. Ikigai, it's called in Japanese, ikigai, dharma, or the purpose to live, has to be clarified. Let me address that issue very clearly. Stanford University has a department which is called Design Your Own Life, and it is by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. What it means is, we live in Silicon Valley here. You design a product, you design a watch, or you design a computer. Similarly, you can design your life with a purpose. And the purpose of life is not only to live for yourself, but to live to be useful for others. And
Absolutely.
that's called seva in Sanskrit, or service in the context. What means you not only live for yourself, you live to share for others. For example, my own example, I live the so-called longevity medicine lifestyle. It is not only that I live, I want to share that knowledge with others. That's what I am doing, teaching others how to live using the longevity principle. Now, there's a willpower. Now, the pill power, is there a magic pill? The answer is yes and no. The pill, you must have heard the buzzword, the longevity pills, the peptides, the longevity in a capsule. There are clinics all over selling different gimmicks. Is that worth it? At the most, it will give you 5 to 10% benefit. And if I may quote, I have quite a few people here from India. I know there are people who don't know Sanskrit, but we have Professor Shanbag here. He's a professor of Ayurveda medicine. So in the Charaka Samhita, which is the original textbook of Ayurvedic medicine, I'll very briefly and very fast quote it. That is, Patye sati gadartasya kim aushad sevitam, patye asati gadartasya kim aushadha sevitam. Simply means if you take a medicine without discipline, the medicine will not work. On the contrary, if you take a medicine with discipline, on the contrary, if you have the discipline, you don't have the need for the medicine. So that is the willpower. I'm sorry, that is the pill power versus the skill power. Skill by definition is the ability to do something well, and that is your lifestyle. And the basic things in lifestyle are how you sleep, how you eat, how you move, and how you connect. How you connect to yourself, to your higher self, and to others. So that in the nutshell is the approach of longevity medicine. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bhatt. Very nicely explained. I just want to quickly ask any of the panelists, do you have any quick question? Yes, go ahead, Tony.
Unmute her.
Dr. Ba, I was just curious if they had done any studies on targeted groups. For example, I'm assuming a lot of the people here, if not all of us, are very careful about how we eat, what we eat, what our beliefs are, and that kind of thing. Have you ever done any kind of research with, say, a group like this, a targeted group, where people are already and living for others? I mean, like, would I want to live that long? Not necessarily, but as long as I have gifts and I can share them, yes. So that's my question.
Excellent question, and I will answer as follows. Yes, indeed. The world's most respected study is called the Blue Zone study. Okay, have you heard of it? Blue Zone study? And that is, blue zones are in Loma Linda, United States, and Nicoya in Costa Rica, Sardinia in Italy, and Icaria in Greece, and Okinawa in Japan. These blue zoners, Dan Buettner, who has studied it, and he has found that in these people who live to be 80, 90, or 100, they have a sense of purpose, which is called the ikigai in Japanese, and they have connectivity, they have the social connection. They don't sit around like we sit in a chair. They sit on the floor called active sitting. They eat whole grains, okay, and they pray and they meditate. And then there is a new study that is done called, and that is done by Eric Topol group, which is called the Weldrell study. And in that also they found the older people, it is not the genetics, it is the lifestyle that makes you live longer. And then these are some of the established studies to answer your question. And the eating, we will elaborate more as we get into the eating domain. Okay? So, Shivaram, shall I briefly explain about the domains of functional reserve?
Sure.
Okay? That way, before people ask questions that I have planned to answer later on. Okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Now, we looked at, the different models of longevity medicine all over the world as it exists. By the way, the longevity medicine is only a 10-year-old science as it is practiced. So we looked at the Blue Zone model. We looked at the Weldrell study of Dr. Eric Topol, and we looked at the Stanford's Design Your Life model. And then based on this, there is a particular professor of Healthspan. His name is called Scott Fulton. Scott Fulton, and has a book called Function, And so with all of those, we have created a dashboard. And what does that mean? As a practicing doctor, we call it as a protocol. Okay? There are many ways of treating heart disease, for example. Each doctor creates his own protocol that he is comfortable in using in his practice. So this is a protocol I'm sharing with you the functional reserve dashboard has the body part, the mind part, and the spirit part. Body part has 4 items. Cardiorespiratory reserve, which is called the VO2 max. Number 2 is the strength and power. Number 3 is the mobility and balance. And number 4 is the flexibility and structure. I will elaborate each one of them in 30 seconds each, but then let me cover the mind part. The mind part has a cognitive health and neuromotor reserve, and the spirit part has a social connection and the purpose or meaning of life. So let me address each one of them, and how to implement it in your daily life. So the first thing is, the most important one is called your vitality, and which is called the VO2 max. How much vitality you have in your body right now, that it tells you how long is your health span. And you test it by simple 6-minute walk test. How far you can walk in 6 minutes. Putting it another way, how long it takes you to walk 1 mile. And then it will tell you as a benchmark, your baseline. Then you do activity. The most important activity is called HIIT. That is, when you are walking, increase your speed as fast as you can, and then for 30 seconds or so, then walk normally. And that is called high intensity interval training. When you do that repeatedly in a month, you will notice that your walking speed has increased and your VO2 max has increased. Okay? Now, the second item in the body domain is called strength and power. And that one you test by a simple test called sit to stand. How many times can you sit and stand in a chair in 30 seconds? And then you increase it by strengthening your muscles in your thigh and in the muscles in your back and so forth, and by specific exercises. And this is why we call it as a muscle-centric life. This is very, very important, because her name is Gabrielle Lyon, Lyon, Gabrielle Lyon in this country. She is called the muscle-centric leader, both men and women. So muscle, commonly we think, is the organ of movement. What we think with the longevity perspective is muscle is a metabolic endocrine organ. Muscle releases a particular hormone called myokine that goes to the brain and stimulates the brain growing factor called BDNF. Muscle goes to the bone and it's called irisin, IRISIN. In fact, Sanjay Gupta in CNN had a talk on it yesterday. That is, to increase your bone, you need irisin from your muscle. That is where you do your muscle activity. Sarcopenia is a word that we use to explain as you get old, your muscles become weak. The way you counter sarcopenia is by resistance training. Resistance training is like plank or like a bridge or dumbbell weightlifting. The resistance training creates a stress, what we call hormetic stress. Along with that, you give high protein, up to 1 gram per kilogram of protein, and that one overcomes the sarcopenia, what we call anabolic resistance, and builds the muscle. In fact, muscle-centric life is the one that will protect you from 4 major killers. The 4 major killers in biblical language, we call it the 4 horsemen. The four horsemen are heart disease, cancer, neurodegenerative diseases, and metabolic diseases. So that is so much about the muscle. Now, let me cover the dashboard very briefly. The next one is balance. If you lose balance, you could fall. You can have hip fracture. If you have hip fracture, for example, it reduces your longevity. You are almost entering your marginal decade. Single leg standing test is a simple test you can do how long you can stand on one leg that determines your mobility and balance. Similarly, for your flexibility, sit and reach test is available, and so much about the four items in the dashboard of your body function. Now let's look at the most important part. Everybody thinks, oh my God, I'm getting old. Hope I don't get dementia. Shall we talk about that, Shivaram?
Yes, yes, please.
Dementia. How many of you, have heard of that Alzheimer's disease or dementia? How many of you have heard of it? Raise your hand. Okay, that means losing memory. I have news for you, good news for you. Today, we have a blood test called p-tau 217 and the beta amyloid 4240, two blood tests that can diagnose Alzheimer's disease 15 to 20 years before it happens. And that way you can plan your life. Let's look at the cognitive challenge. We all think as we get older, you have dementia, lose memory. And let me ask you this, the three questions. Is it true, some of us, you go to a room and you enter there, you don't know what you came to the room for. You keep a key someplace, then you forgot where you kept it, which is called the doorway forgetfulness. Or the tip of the tongue, oh, I know that guy, what is his name? That one is very common, right? Don't remember the name. The third is, I can't remember these days, I have to make a list of things. These are the three cardinal symptoms of when you're losing memory. I have news for you. Good memory has two parts. Part one is the recording error. Part two is the storage. Imagine you will use a microphone to talk, and there are two kinds of microphones, cardioid and then omni. Cardioid is a focused microphone. So when you are looking at, let's say, the key that you place, or look at somebody whose face and name you want to connect in a cocktail party, for example, you register it by focus your attention on your belly button, that is called centering, and then register it. So the first part of the memory issue is registering, and the second part is recalling it. This is how you amplify the function of the memory center called hippocampus in your brain. What do? I do a particular thing. And what do? I look at a person and then look at the name, then immediately I close my eyes and then replay it in my mind. That is how you create a photographic memory. Now, neuroplasticity is a word we use in medical science, how you can make your brain regrow the network. By the way, my age is 80 plus. At this age, I started learning piano. Why? I want to share this with you. I started learning piano 2 months ago from a piano teacher. Now I use electronic devices to play piano. Why and how? Very, very interesting. When you play piano, you're using both parts, both side of your body, number one. Number two, when you make error, if you use an electronic feedback that tells you made an error, and then you correct the error, and that correction of the error allows you to build new neural network, and that is called in medical terminology reward prediction error. So the more error I make, more happy I am because I am building more networks. Additionally, to boost your brain function, we recommend nutrition and particularly omega-3 fat to build neuronal cells. So much about the nerves. And now, let me briefly talk about the social connection reserve. And then as we get older, for example, people try to be more isolated, particularly when we get hooked into our smartphone. You spend so much time isolated into your media, smartphone, WhatsApp or whatever else. And Vivek Murthy, former Surgeon General of United States, has a book on it, how to connect yourself back into the society, getting away from the computer. You see? Now, so what it's called, we call it as a samaja in Sanskrit. What we recommend is you should have an intimate group, and then you have a wider group of connectivity. So much about the different reserves. And then we are going to go to the final part called the habit stacking. So Shivaram.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bhatt. I think we also may have a question from the panelists. I would want to give a chance if you have any burning questions if you want to ask quickly.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatt, for sharing all of this very useful information. You mentioned about Ayurveda's Charak Samhita, and I have a question about routines, daily routines, seasonal routines, and annual routines. Because that same Charak Samhita that you mentioned, one of the initial important chapters there is called as Dirgha Jivita Adhyaya, which is longevity chapter. And it talks about Dinacharya, which is daily routines, and Rutucharya, which is seasonal routines, and then definitely the annual Varshacharya. So what are your thoughts about various routines, Dr. Bhatt?
Excellent, Professor Shanbag. By the way, Professor Vivek Shanbag is a distinguished professor of Ayurvedic medicine in the United States. And then I'm so happy you asked the question. It brings me to the concept, what you called dinacharya or daily routine. The fundamental way you can learn the longevity medicine in your daily life is the process called habit stacking. Let me elaborate that. Okay? Habit stacking. You have an existing habit, let us say the brushing your teeth. Okay? In the morning, everybody brushes their teeth. It is a dinacharya or a daily activity. When you're brushing your teeth, if you could stand on one leg, then you are already doing an exercise to learn the balance. And that is existing habit. When you start at the second item, then that second item gets stacked automatically on the first one. Okay? Now, let me apply that principle into four key things we do in life. Habit stacking, you're eating. Okay? No matter what else you do in life, you got to eat, right? And there are two things in eating: what to eat and when to eat. Okay? Let me talk about when to eat. Longevity research has shown that fasting, which is called calorie restriction can be done by time-restricted eating, that is the most common time-restricted eating you can do is a 12-3. That simply means at least for 12 hours between dinner and the next day breakfast. This is very important. In some countries like India, people eat their dinner very late, and then they don't have 12-hour gap. Dale Bredesen, who is the leading researcher on brain, and he has a book here called The Ageless Brain. And can you all see this book? And
Yeah.
so he has been teaching. In fact, he trained me in Alzheimer's disease reversing. One of the key thing is the 12-3. There is the 12 hours of gap between your dinner and breakfast, and at least 3-hour gap between your dinner and going to bed. I myself practice 16-8, that is 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating window. So that one, you might have heard of how many, if you have not heard of it, this is called fasting mimicking diet. The Walter Longo from Southern University of Southern California has done this research. That is, you can do 5 to 6 days of fasting, eating certain foods that are ketogenic at a level, so the body thinks you are fasting, but you are eating. This is called fasting mimicking diet. I personally use it, and I use it in our clinic for my patients. So much about when to eat. What to eat? You want to reduce the processed food. You want to increase whole grains, and particularly, we call it feed and eat. In all cultures in the world, beans and lentils are used. Eat that enough to feed your gut bacteria. So much about habit stacking of eating. Now, let's talk about supplements, which is part of eating. Okay? Then I'm going to cover movement, and then sleep, and then we are done. Okay? So we have a clear goal here how to finish. Okay? So,
Sure.
first is the pills. Okay? If you look at all the longevity researchers, there are most longevity researchers, the scientists that I mentioned, one of the leading one is, for example, Peter Attia. Here is a book, and book is called Outlive. These are some books we recommend to our students. And another one is the Super Agers. That is by Eric Topol. This is one we recommend in our courses. And one more we recommend is called Longevity Guidebook. That is by Peter Diamandis. Look at this. And this particular person has what is called the Fountain of Life longevity clinics, somewhat expensive all over America. And so all these principles are taught using what I am teaching you right now. The supplement stacking, where you look, we are talking about habit stacking. Whatever supplement you take, these are the 10 supplements on which there is a consensus, for longevity. Number 1 is a multivitamin. Should you take it or not? The answer is definitely yes. Why? Many of us have micro deficiency of certain vitamins or minerals, which is called the triage theory, TRIAGE, triage theory of nutrition. And so if you take a multivitamin with the minerals, you cover it. Second item, universally deficient, especially in vegetarian eating countries, is the vitamin B12. And that is, if you include it within multivitamin, you are set. Vitamin D supplement, many people are low. Our goal is to reach 50 to 75. So So most people need 3 to 5,000 units a day. Omega-3 fatty acid, which is the fish oil or the vegan fish oil, which is derived from algae. Very important for your brain and your body. Why? Because we use omega-6 cooking oil, the seed oil, safflower, sunflower, soybean oil, corn oil. These oils are pro-inflammatory. To counter it, you need omega-3 fatty acid. Magnesium is the next one. There are 3 kinds of magnesium, the oxide and citrate, and then glycinate and threonate. Glycinate is for muscle cramps, threonate is for brain. CoQ10 we recommend. CoQ10 is a supplement you need for the brain and heart. Particularly, most people take statin for a heart, and CoQ10 counters the side effect. In a longevity medicine, we recommend creatine up to 5 gram or 10 gram, and as a supplement to build your muscle, and protein powder similarly. Now, what about the so-called anti-aging supplements called the peptides? Let me talk about it. Peptide therapy is a big buzz in America, in Europe, also starting in Australia and India and so forth. Peptides are often sold in the black market, imported from China and so forth in this country. If I classify the peptides, there are youth booster peptides called CJC1295 and tissue repair peptide, most important, called BPC157, and immune shield peptides called thymosin alpha 1, cellular battery peptides like MOTSC or epitalon, and more recently, tasomorelin peptide. As you are sitting there, let me ask you, how many of you have big belly, abdominal obesity? Would you raise your hand? Abdominal obesity. Big belly. So those of you, or those of us, I am included, who have big belly, big belly is the visceral fat, which is the most toxic fat that affects the metabolism, reduces your longevity. People believe this new peptide called tasomorelin is a peptide that reduces the belly fat. It is true, but it is indicated in this country for HIV patients. One of these days in the future, it would be a different modification would be available for all of us to lose our belly fat. At this point in time, we don't recommend because it increases the insulin resistance and diabetes. GLP-1 agents, which is called tirzepatide. Tirzepatide is a peptide which is sometimes called Zepbound in this country. The government of United States is spending $1 billion per year for the next 18 months to provide the GLP-1 agents for seniors age 65 and above for weight loss to prevent comorbidities related to weight. So we covered that one. Now let's comment on the habit of sleep. How can you upgrade your sleep? Number 1, synchronize your sleep to circadian rhythm. Number 2, if you have sleep apnea and snoring problem, get it diagnosed and treat. Enhance your deep sleep and by increasing your sleep drive during the day. And then the last part is the movement. And the movement, isometric movement. The simplest way to do your movement is the 5 items. My daughter, Dr. Joy Bhatt, who is one of the panelists, she and I researched for over a year, and we came to the conclusion there are the 5 things you can do in less than 10 minutes every morning that addresses your flexibility, your muscle strength, and all the things we talked about. Those 5s are habit linking, do a bridge while you're still in the bed in the morning. Bridge is, you know what a bridge pose is. And then second is while you're brushing your teeth, do one leg standing and also calf raise and toe raise. And those are the 3 items. Number 4 is when you are at the breakfast table, you sit and stand, as an exercise. Particularly when you sit and stand, you put your right hand on your left thigh and the left hand on your right thigh, alternating. When you're alternating, then do a mental exercise like deducting 3 from 100 and down, or telling the months in reverse. This is a cognitive stimulus during exercise with the crisscross pattern increases your neuroplasticity and memory. So I mentioned 5 items. The 5th item is a plank, throughout the day when you get a break. Simply put, these 5 items, my daughter, Dr. Joy, and I, we put it out when we have 2 million people in the world watched it. So, with that one, as we are concluding, I want to give you a checklist. Okay? The checklist is, what do you ask your doctor with the perspective of longevity medicine when you go to your doctor? Let me cover that, then we will open up for question and answer. Okay? Is that fair, Shivaramji?
Yeah, we are running a little late, Dr. Bhatt, just to let you know, but please go ahead.
Yeah, this is the last part of the thing. Okay? Then we'll open up. All right? So the 4 things we call the 4 horsemen, and which is the heart disease, the brain, the cancer, and the immune metabolism. The heart disease, when you go to your doctor from the longevity perspective, ask for these advanced heart test, which is LP(a), ApoB, and inflammatory marker called HSCRP. The advanced clinics in America do coronary CT angiogram to evaluate soft plaque with the clearly or heart flow analysis. For Alzheimer's disease and dementia, once again, we recommend you ask your doctor to test the beta amyloid 4240 and p-tau 217. For cancer detection in this country, there's the polygenic risk factor, and also there is a liquid test called multi-cancer early detection test called MCED test. For immune metabolism, we recommend hemoglobin A1C and gut biome analysis. That addresses the 4 horsemen. And so, in short, I have covered the extensive landscape of longevity medicine and given you some tips of creating your own dashboard in your domain of body, mind, and spirit. And finally, how you can change your habit in a simple sleep, eat, and move and connect. Now, let's open up for open questions.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Naras Bhat. Now, before we move into the question and answer session, I would like to take a few moments to reflect on something important. Today, we have spoken about living longer, healthier, and more vibrant lives. But perhaps we should also ask ourselves, how can our longevity benefit not just ourselves, but humanity as a whole? Living, as Dr. Butt mentioned, living longer is a gift. Living healthier gives us the opportunity to contribute more, serve more, and make a great difference in the lives of others. While many of us are fortunate to have access to healthcare, nutrition, and education, millions around the world still lack these basic necessities. At Education for All, we believe that a healthier world is built not only by extending life, but by extending compassion, opportunity, and care to those who need it most. With that, I would also want to introduce some of our panelists who are in this mission of helping the world in different ways. So we have panelists here from different regions and different parts of the country. I want to introduce them quickly, and we'll take a few minutes and hear from them as well. Then after that, we'll jump into question and answer. And please write your questions, and panelists, please be ready with your questions so we can quickly jump into. Now, let me first introduce Tony Wagon. She is currently in Hawaii, but she volunteers and works in our Clarksdale Medical Center. So, Tony, would you like to talk briefly about the service activities, what the One World One Family mission is doing in Clarksdale?
Well, I don't know if I'm quite qualified to do that, but as volunteers, we have the clinic is love all, serve all. Everybody's welcome. There's no discrimination. Everybody's there. Doesn't matter if they have the ability to pay or not. These doctors take such good care of the patients. It's an exemplary place. And I can't say enough about their dedication and their hard work and how much they do for others. So it sets a really high bar for all of us. And we have other projects also through Education for All and working with the youth and so forth. So thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Dr. Gautami, would you like to add? She is the director of the medical center in Clarksdale, Mississippi.
Well, I consider this as a privilege for this mission to help the people who are uninsured and also to help the kids. We have a free after school program. We teach them about education and human values, provide them with free lunch and everything. We've also started a community garden to address food insecurity. Any of the listeners who are participating today, if you are interested to know more about our mission and if you want to participate, please reach out to us through Shivara. Thank you.
Yeah, basically educationforall.org, the one you received this invitation and the Zoom link. If you go there, you have all the details in that one. Thank you, Dr. Gautami. Now let me quickly ask Emmanuel. He's from Nigeria. He heads our One World One Family mission there. Emmanuel, would you like to tell briefly about what are the wonderful things you are doing there?
Oh, Siam, everyone. It's a great privilege to be joining from Nigeria. And it's also a great privilege that Joy Village is also part of the global mission of Sadhguru Srimad Sudan Sai, the One World One Family. And through this mission, we have been able to help thousands of patients, sick people who ordinarily wouldn't have access to healthcare, due to how things are in Nigeria, especially. Our hospital provides free healthcare, to anyone that walks in without any discrimination. And then our school trains over 1,100 students. And we also have the Skills Acquisition Center that trains women in dressmaking and also ICT for the youth. We also have free feeding program that feeds over 850 children every school day. And then we have an orphanage also that has been a sanctuary for vulnerable children. Right now we have 12 of them in university. They joined when they were maybe in primary school around 2012. But right now we have 12 of them in university. We have 2 also in India studying to be doctors. So the mission has been growing, and Thanks for the support of everyone all around the world. We have been able to continue, and we hope to also expand and also, have more joint villages in Nigeria. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Emmanuel. Just to brief, actually, we have a hospital there as well as the school. And in the Education for All website, if you go to initiative section, you have the details about all these initiatives. And now I'll quickly go to Daliso. He's from Malawi. And before that, Shiv Prasad, but are you there? He's from Shivamogga, India.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, you may like to turn on your video if you can.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he hails from Shivamogga and he heads the our one of our school campuses there and also coordinates with the other nearby school campuses. Please go ahead, Shiv Prasad.
Thank you, Shiram sir, for this opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Naras Bhat ji, for that wonderful explanation on the longevity and the health. As many of you are aware, One Word, One Family mission founded by Sadhguru Shri Masudan Sai works for the nutrition, education, and healthcare of the rural children, especially in India. And I am also one of the beneficiaries, now turned to be a benefactor to my place. I belong to Shivamogga region, that is Karnataka. And now presently, we have around 27 campuses in India, where more than 3,500 children are being educated from sixth standard to right up to their post graduation and also doctorate studies. I have finished my MA in history from the same university, Sri Sathya Sai University for Human Excellence. And also in the field of healthcare, there are around 10 hospitals which is providing tertiary care and also more than 100 primary health centers in rural areas. Where I belong to, the place there we have a school campus where 6, 7, and 8 age group between 12 to 15 students are studying. And we have about 60 students now. And very soon, once the building is ready, we will be expanding till 12th standard, that will be up to 12 to 18 age group. And also we have a small primary health center, which also works as the feeder to our medical college here in Muddenhalli. We will be having secondary care hospital shortly in the campus, which helps the students and also local community. Mainly the campus in Shivamogga is based in the very rural setup, which is almost near to Banavasi, the first capital of Kannadigas, which was ruled by Kadambas. There is a beautiful World Heritage Center, Madhukeshwara Temple. And also it is very near to world famous Joke Falls. That's the biggest falls in the Asia. That's all from my side, and thank you very
Sure.
much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Shiv Prasad. But and also there is a school nearby. There is school as well. There is in Karwar. There is one school, I guess, and there
Yeah,
is
there
one
is a
school that
school in
is
the Karwar and also in Jaipura, and we
Chikmagalur.
are
Yeah,
opening a higher education center in Alike, that is in the district of Dakshin Kannada. That's how
right.
that region is being benefited from the mission.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Shiv Prasad. Okay. Now quickly, Dalisto, you want to talk a little bit about your mission in Malawi? Then we'll go to question and answer. Okay. I think he's not there. Or I'll quickly brief that in Malawi also we have a One World One Family mission. We have actually One World One Family mission in about 100 countries and doing services in one or the other way. So with that, we'll open it for question and answer. And let me go to Mi Kyung, you have any question? She's heads our One World, One Family mission in South Korea, and currently she is a naturopathic practitioner in Germany. Mi Kyung, you have any question?
Yes. At first, thank you very much for the topic. It is very interesting, and when I heard of the topic, the first question came on my mind because Ayurvedic medicine came actually to increase the lifespan. I still remember that I learned Ayurvedic medicine in my class, and the professor talked to us. At that time when Ayurvedic medicine came, the lifespan of humanity was only 27 years. And after 7,000 years, now in these days, we live about 80, 90, or 100. So I ask myself, what is the main cause behind it? What is the core that make us live longer? So it's actually Ayurvedic medicine or modern medicine. It seems different, but the core actually is the same. So the topic was very interesting, and in that sense. And my question is how it came, the topic in the modern medicine. In Ayurvedic medicine is very basic old question actually.
Thank you, Mi Kyung. Dr. Naras, but hope you got the question.
Yes, I got the question. So first, let's address, yeah, she was mentioning about the mortality rate, the longevity was 27 years, and then modern medicine helped to tackle infant mortality, that itself increased the longevity in countries like India and some of the third world countries. But the longevity medicine concept came only 13 years ago, believe it or not. And that is, people discovered that at a cell level, you can modify the trajectory of the cell's growth and perishing. And that discovery, and I think the biggest gift to us is AI today, artificial intelligence, which is able to analyze millions of data in a matter of few minutes to come to a conclusion. This has led to discovery of new medications and interventions that would normally take 10 years is done in 1 month. And this is one advancement. And secondly, of course, the combination of old and new, the Vedic wisdom and Ayurvedic medicine. We have here Professor Shanbag. That is, Mark Twain once said, the ancients have stolen our best ideas. So the Vedic wisdom, for example, Sushruta Samhita in Ayurveda, it says swastasya swastya rakshanam. That is, you preserve your current health, and that is the purpose of longevity medicine. Let me have Dr. Shanbag address it a little more.
Sure. As you mentioned, Mi Kyung and also Dr. Bhatt, for 7,000 years or maybe even more, Ayurveda has been recommending the daily routines, dinacharya, and seasonal routines, which is rutucharya, and also the annual routines, which is the varshacharya, where for anti-aging, a whole branch of Ayurveda is dedicated. It is called as the Rasayana and Panchakarma, which are certain daily routines and seasonal routines, both to be done at home for prevention and life enhancement, and also to be done with trained expert Ayurvedic physicians and clinics for preventing seasonal diseases and also to enhance the longevity. So, for example, the supplements that were mentioned, various vitamins, those are also recommended in Ayurveda in your day-to-day diet through culinary herbs like turmeric, ginger, cinnamon, garlic, and some specialty anti-aging nutrients like ashwagandha, guduchi, brahmi, Arjuna. For example, Arjuna is known as the best natural source of coenzyme Q10. Then ginger is known for the gut biome. Cinnamon is known for cardiovascular longevity. Guduchi is known for immune and liver longevity. Gokshara is known for the whole kidney and urinary system and also prostate longevity. So these are that have been practiced for, like you mentioned, 7,000 years. And this whole science of longevity or rasayana is a very specialty branch in Ayurveda. And we have shown results to our patients here in our clinic in San Jose and also earlier in Seattle for last 37 years. So this is a science that specifically uses both techniques that people can do on their own at home and also with the help of experts in a clinic or a hospital.
Very well said, Dr. Shanbag, because I have to give you a feedback, and this is this one I mentioned, The Ageless Brain by Dr. Dale Bredesen. His major advisor is Dr. Ram Mohan Rao, PhD, and he is also an Ayurveda trained doctor who is also, I believe, a student of Dr. Shanbag, at times. So they have incorporated many of the principles that Dr. Shanbag has mentioned. So thank you so much that you pointed out.
Yeah, there is one
Thank you for
question.
giving the Thank you, Dr. Bhatt, for giving the very practical solution of habit stacking, which is kind of a modern way of looking at the daily routines and seasonal routines of Ayurveda. I really applaud that.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shanbag and Dr. Naras Bhat. We are about 4 minutes away before the closing of the session. I think we'll take one question. If any panelists have questions, I will take it from that.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'll read out one question from the
Sarah,
registration.
thank you all for Dr. Schaumbach and Dr. Bhatt for all your excellent advice in the talk. I just have, it's a common question I think everyone will benefit from. What about the food? How the refrigerated living, having a more Western style, we end up eating frozen food, old food. We don't necessarily make good, fresh food every day. What are your thoughts on that? How old is the food really old and it should be completely avoided? Just if you can share your thoughts.
Excellent question. The rule number one is the processed food. Okay, rather than focusing more on frozen versus unfrozen, if we, of course, fresh food is always better, but on the other hand, processed food, when you have food processing, especially grains, and then adding all kind of preservatives and other items, then that processed food causes all the problem. So as much as possible, go to whole food, whole grains, and then eat them fresh if possible, or fresh frozen. And there is one unique research done about cooking and refrigerating potatoes and rice that converts the rice into resistant starch. Resistant starch, is a prebiotic to support the probiotic. So this research was done in University of Michigan. They took the rice, then cooked with a little bit of coconut oil, and then put it in the refrigerator and ate it later. And having said that, you have to be careful. You don't know, there is a bacteria called B. cereus. If you store the rice too long in the refrigerator, and then reheat it over and over again, then you have the risk of B. cereus bacteria. So bottom line, fresh food, whole food, and I always emphasize beans and lentils, which is the food for your gut bacteria. Okay, worldwide. Black beans is easily available in the US. That's what I eat and what I recommend. Dal in India. And the only problem is you have to eat a cup full of dal to produce the dose effect of the prebiotic.
I
So
would
good
like to
question.
add to that, Dr. Bhatt, like you said, uh, more than the focusing on the frozen food or the fresh food, definitely avoid processed food, but also your vegetables, your lentils, and your beans, just from the nutrient level, you can take them to almost a pharmaceutical level nutrition by smartly using culinary herbs, which is whether it is coriander, fennel, cumin, ginger, garlic, cinnamon, cloves, cardamom, various spice culinary herbs. Take your food to a more like a pharmaceutical nutrition level food by adding many preventive as well as health enhancing properties which these herbs have. The herbs provide the nature's pharmacy to you right in your kitchen, but you need to learn a little bit about wise and smart use of these culinary herbs.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shanbag, and yeah, thank you, Dr. Naras Bhat. I think we'll close the session now. Is it okay, Dr. Naras Bhat? We'll close it.
Yes, certainly.
Okay.
We had
Yeah, so as we
many.
come to the end of today's webinar, I would like to thank Dr. Naras Bhat for sharing his insights, wisdom, and practical guidance on how we can lead longer, healthier, and more fulfilling lives. We learned today that longevity is not simply about adding more years to life, but about adding more life to our years. And perhaps an equally important question is, what do we do with those additional years and that improved health? A longer and healthier life gives us a great opportunity to contribute, to serve, to mentor, to care, and to leave the world a little better than we found it. As we invest in our health and well-being, let us also remember those who still lack access to basic healthcare, nutrition, and education. If today's discussion inspired you, we invite you to join us in supporting initiatives that are bringing hope and opportunity to communities across India, Nigeria, Malawi, Sri Lanka, Fiji, Mississippi, and many other parts of the world. Together, we can help create not only longer lives, but healthier, happier, and more meaningful lives for many others. Thank you once again, Dr. Naras Bhat, our panelists, and each one of you for joining us today for your thoughtful participation and questions. We look forward to seeing you again at future programs and webinars. Until then, stay healthy, stay inspired, and continue making a positive difference in the world around you. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Pat.